Wife invited her family to live with us rent-free without asking me, and when I told her they couldn't stay with us, she called me an orphaned loser. So I ended the lease on our house and moved out without her knowing. Now she and her family are begging me for forgiveness because they're going to end up on the streets. I don't know why, maybe they romanticized the idea of a huge, happy family, but it wasn't realistic, as neither of us was ready. I wanted to speak to them and let them know that it wasn't okay to constantly bring it up, especially when we'd made it clear we weren't ready. It made both of us uncomfortable and sometimes even annoyed. However, Kathy wanted to handle it differently, by not handling it at all. She told me that her family had always been involved in her life and expected to have a say in things like this, but since they didn't have bad intentions, she thought we should just let it go. I didn't like the idea of saying nothing, as it would mean continuing to hear them talk about it. But I didn't want to hurt them, so we decided to drop it. Whenever they'd bring up having kids, we'd just nod, smile, and let the topic die on its own. That's why I've been finding it very hard to get along with them in the past few months and have been distancing myself. However, 2 weeks ago, something unfortunate happened. A major fire damaged their house. It's being reconstructed now, but that will take a few months. Insurance has it covered, so they don't need to worry about the cost, but they do need temporary accommodation. Their insurance will only cover them for a couple of weeks, and after that, they'll be on their own and have to spend out of pocket. On top of that, all of Kathy's siblings had been living in the same house. In her family, nobody really moves out unless they absolutely have to or really want to. Kathy only moved out when she decided to live with me before we got married. This way, they don't have to worry about rent, and in today's economy, I totally understand that. What I don't understand is why her siblings can't find their own place to live for the time being, instead of tagging along with their parents. This became a problem for me because Kathy invited her parents to come stay with us, so they wouldn't have to spend money on accommodation. Of course, we weren't going to ask them for rent. Had it been just her parents, I would have been fine with it, even though Kathy didn't discuss it with me first. But then she told me it wouldn't be just her parents staying with us, it would be her siblings as well. And they wouldn't be paying rent either. I had a huge problem with that because it's not like her siblings are really young. They're all in their 20s and working, so it's definitely not that they can't afford rent. I thought it was unreasonable to expect that just the two of us could handle all the expenses for a family of almost 7 adults, including ourselves. It was impossible, and there was no way we could avoid burning through our savings if they didn't contribute to household expenses, rent, groceries, utilities, and everything else. If they couldn't afford that, it would be better for them to find their own accommodation. There was no way I was going to allow Kathy's entire family to move in and live on our dime for months. That's when Kathy started throwing a tantrum and accused me of being selfish. But I didn't think I was being selfish at all. I thought I was being perfectly reasonable because I didn't see why her entire family should move in with us for free or why Kathy had invited them without asking me, knowing we couldn't afford it. For context, I work in marketing, and she's a high school teacher. Together, we might be able to support her parents and let them stay with us for free for a few months, but her siblings were out of the question. I kept trying to explain to her that they have jobs and earn enough to find places of their own, they're adults and would be fine. But she kept insisting that her whole family had to stay with us because she wanted to be there for them in tough times. She had already promised them they wouldn't need to pay for anything, so she wasn't willing to ask them to contribute, claiming that it would make us seem cheap. Never mind the fact that we would go broke trying to live up to the promises she made without thinking. She cared more about what they thought than about our own circumstances. We argued for a good half hour, and I tried my best to stay calm, but it became difficult because she just didn't get my point and kept making me sound like the selfish one.